What if I try to do that with you? I open up and I talk. I've got this thing that's kinked up, and I'm in a lot of pain, and it really sucks. And I got shame wrapped up in. There's all kinds of potential for pain for me inside of this thing, and I open it up and I share it with you in hopes that you will feel it too, and share and let it work through your system, and you'll process it with me, and then you'll give it back more digestible. But instead, what if you take that, you look at it, and you give me back the same thing, but loaded with your disgust, loaded with your rejection, loaded with blame, loaded with anger, loaded with all kinds of ugliness. Now I've got that thing and I'm trying to process it, but now it's all loaded up with a bunch more junk. Hey guys, welcome back to Deep Space. My name is Ben. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor, and if this is your first video with us, this is Deep Space. This is a space that we have created to explore the deeper things in life. So that ends up looking, as a counselor, that ends up looking a lot like mental health videos, psychology, life in general. Today we're going to be talking about something that's really important to my heart. We're going to be talking about vulnerability and the importance of vulnerability. It's kind of a buzzword in the world of psychology. If you don't know of her, you should definitely check her out. Brené Brown has a book called The Power of Vulnerability. It's really, really good stuff. There's a lot of good research that's coming out. Vulnerability is a theme that runs through a lot of my other videos about how to take better care of yourself, how to connect with people, the importance of connection. Vulnerability is basically a huge part of connection. And it's a different kind of connection than what we see in history. What we see it's a connection that makes us capable of more than we've been capable as a species, the development, the evolution of the human race. To start with, I thought I would talk a little bit about why vulnerability is so hard. It doesn't come to us naturally. It's something that we resist. And that's actually very biological. There's a real reason for it. Basically, it has to do with survival. As a species, we've emerged out of we've talked about it in other videos, we've emerged out of a pretty animalistic, barbaric, we are chimps with an extra part in our brains. We have come from a time in life, the development of the human race as a species has been really about survival, mostly about survival, and the opposite of survival in a lot of ways is vulnerability. And survival, ultimately, life clings to survival and would really like to be invulnerable. Vulnerability feels like risk. And there's a bunch of us that's wired to minimize and manage risk. But we're moving into a new part of human development. We're getting to the place where we're beginning to realize that we have needs that require some risk to get met. We have needs of each other. To see this in a zoomed in way is if you have kids, what your needs are in life. Do you need more than just food and shelter and water? Are there things that you need that are not necessarily threatening your survival, but you still really, really need it? And I see that obviously in my own life. So much of what seems to bring people into my office is almost always about experiences in their life, whether present or past, that don't have really much to do with food, shelter. More often than not, the needs that aren't getting met are more than just survival needs, because we're moving past the survival only season of development as a species. We're moving into a part of the human experience where we recognize we need more from each other in an emotional sense, a psychological sense, in a connection sense. Your kids don't just need a roof over their head. They need to know that they're loved. They need to know that they have value. They need to know that they have a self. They need to know that they have, that they live in relationship to other humans who have value and emotions and self. And they need to be able to tell the difference between them and the group around them, that they're not just a part of a collective community that we just try to get food and we try not to get killed by saber-toothed tigers. Now we're developing, we have much more complex emotional needs related to things like identity and sense of self, value, and more than that, we need each other for the processing of emotion, the processing of experiences, right? So one way that I talk about this with my clients, since for those of you watching, this is going to sound really familiar. So when we have an experience, when we go through something, when we have emotion, it moves. It's kind of like it's got a channel within us, like it's got a course that it's intended to run. So we don't know, and I don't know all of the specific places that course runs, but it's literally in our bodies, and it runs through systems like meaning making. So this thing happened. Why? How do I make sense of what life is like if this thing is a part of it? How do I make sense of what to expect from the people around me, what to expect from the world around me? How do I make sense of what just happened? It goes through a channel of actual sensory sensations where we actually feel it. You know, if that means tears or if it means whatever, however our body responds to it, we feel the thing. We cry and we think about it, we make sense of it, and we apply it to our sense of self. What does this mean about who I am, about what I'm worth, and what does it mean about the world around me? So part of that process is to then give that to somebody else. We share it through connection, relationships. We share this experience. We express what this means to us. We talk about the feelings of it, and we give it to them. And then they do the same thing in their system, right? They feel it. They allow it to move. They make sense of it. Like, why did this happen? What does this mean? Through empathy, allow their emotional systems to be ignited and to come online and to process your stuff. And it means a lot to you. As they then give it back, it helps you, they give it back in like a more digestible form, right? To where you can then take it and process it more easily. And sometimes you give it back and then they do their thing and they give it back and then you do your thing. But eventually that thing moves through you. And where it's trying to eventually end up is in your long-term memory, to where this is an event, it happened, it had an impact, but I processed all the emotion out of it. I processed all the meaning out of it. If I get reminded of it, it doesn't start to happen again emotionally for me. It's been worked out. One thing that can happen in that, and that often comes, that I see in my office, is that gets stuck. For whatever reason, that process stops. Often, it's about a lack of vulnerability or a lack of safety to share that with somebody else or to give that to somebody else or even to acknowledge it themselves and to make sense of it themselves. But if it gets stuck, it kinks. Like that flow sticks. And it's like a physical embodiment. Like in your body, it sticks and it stops. And it starts to build up. And it starts to pressurize. And then it'll pop. And it'll pop out sideways. And that emotional energy will start coming out in rage or addictions or all kinds of avoidance or blaming, all kinds of stuff, ways that it comes out sideways, and then it's spraying and then it comes back down. And then it comes back up. And then a lot of people are in my office living right here. They're living with the emotion spraying out sideways. What they need is for that kink to get worked out and to open up again and begin to flow again so the emotion can flow, the experience can flow. We do that best relationally. We do that best when we can do that for each other and with each other. We experience together. We allow ourselves to be moved by the other person. We allow the other person to be moved by our stuff. We allow them to speak into those spaces their compassion, their connection, that they feel it too, and they'll work through it with you, right? That is a crazy vulnerable thing to do. It's extremely vulnerable because think about it. What if I try to do that with you? I open up and I've got this thing that's kinked up and I'm in a lot of pain and it really sucks, and I've got shame wrapped up in it, or there's all kinds of potential for pain for me inside of this thing, and I open it up and I share it with you in hopes that you will feel it too and share and let it work through your system and you'll process it with me, and then you'll give it back more digestible. But instead, what if you take that, you look at it and you give me back the same thing, but loaded with your disgust, loaded with your rejection, loaded with blame, loaded with anger, loaded with all kinds of ugliness. Now I've got that thing and I'm trying to process it, but now it's all loaded up with a bunch more junk, ugly junk, and junk that has to do with what I can expect to when I share with other people, what my stuff is worth. Is it even important to do this with me? Our kids are doing this with us all the time. They don't have nice language for it. Our kids are sharing with us the messy, like they're doing this thing a lot, or even they're doing this, but it's overflowing and there's just emotion everywhere and they've got really big emotions. They don't know how to handle them. When we look at our kids and we say, you can't be that way, or we reject that and say, what is wrong with you? I'm guilty of some of this. I mean, it's hard sometimes when you see the crazy that these kids give us. It's hard to just respond the way that what they need from us, which is compassion, empathy, understanding, a safe place to process big feelings and to work them out and to work through them and to let them move and to get them into my long-term memory. So it's vulnerability that allows us to do that well for each other. Our kids are inherently vulnerable with us because they trust us. Because they have no reason. They don't know that sometimes we suck. And when they do know it, they forget about it and they trust us again anyway. We got to do a really good job of being good, making good on that trust. We got to be there for that. When they share their hearts with us in those ways, we've got to give it back more digestible. We've got to give back what they give us, something that's been tended to, has been cared for. Because when that happens, when I'm able to let it go where it goes, one of my favorite metaphors for this kind of stuff is water. Because it's a lot like water. That stuff brings life. Those feelings are part of what makes life work, what makes life happen. It's part of what brings growth and development. When we work through those things together and we are successful at it, the things that we've been making sense of, we learn. The experience of the emotion itself teaches us about ourselves. It teaches us about the world. It teaches us how to be good people, good citizens that are interconnected and take good care of each other. It teaches us how to do that. Right? That's really important. I think of it like if this is water and it's channeling, it's kinked, I think of it as sort of like a river in the desert. If it's allowed to stay in its channel, there's life grows up all around it. If it kinks, there's a desert on the other side. But this is the thing that we're so afraid of and why we often avoid vulnerability and why it's so important that we do it, because if we don't and it builds up and then it unkinks and breaks open, it can flood us. We have so much emotion. We don't know what to do with it. We get wrecked by the thing. We feel like we're going to drown in it, where it's going to lead to depression, or it's going to lead to sort of impulsive lashing out, or it's going to lead to like locking down and over-regulating. It's going to lead to a mess. And so then we never do it, and it builds up and it builds up and it builds up. And then the idea of it opening up is just like, well, that's crazy talk. That's definitely going to drown me. So that the water, sort of the metaphor of water, the water of our emotions is meant to bring life if we let it channel in the directions that it's meant to go. But part of that channel, part of where that goes, is we give it to each other. We take care of each other's feelings. We share in them. We feel them with each other. We allow empathy and compassion to move us through the feelings. And then we do that together in a way that helps them to come back more digestible and helps them to come back more processed so that we can continue to move through the experience and it doesn't stick in us. You know, I know, we all have things that have stuck that we probably should be sharing with people. We probably shouldn't be doing by ourselves. I hope you don't feel like you've got to do that. I hope that you know that stuff has value. It matters to you, so it matters to me. That stuff is worth allowing to move and work through. It's worth taking good care of because you are worth taking good care of. And that's what that's the best of vulnerability. One quick caveat, not everybody deserves your vulnerability. There will be people that you will feel like you want to share this kind of thing with. You want to share about what happened. You want to share about how you felt about it. You want to share about what it makes you think, what it makes you feel. You want to do that, but you know that those people are not going to handle it well. They're incompetent to handle your vulnerability. Don't do it with them. Vulnerability is reserved for the people who get it, the people who are competent to take care of your stuff, who aren't going to make it worse by the way that they respond to it. Share it with those people. When you have those relationships, take good care of them and allow them to take good care of you because you're worth it, and that's what makes this whole thing worth doing. That's what makes it all work. It all works better when we take good care of each other. I hope that this channel is helpful, allowing you to process some of your stuff and allowing you to face it and to know that you're allowed to. Feelings are mentionable. I saw a clip with Mr. Rogers today in front of Congress looking for funding. Feelings are mentionable, and they can be managed. We can do something with them. So I hope this channel helps you to do that. You're welcome to any of this stuff. I am with you in this. My heart's with you. If this is something that you're into, hit like, subscribe. Feel free to share this with anybody that you'd like, and we're going to keep making videos. We'll keep making them pretty much every week. And look for the podcast on Friday. We got another one coming. So peace and love. It's so good to be with you guys. I hope that I can be a part of taking good care of you. Thank you for everything you do in my life and in my heart. I love you guys. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.